Hello, and welcome to Reanimated. This is episode 242. It's a long, high number. Hey, I'm Stuart. I'm one of your hosts. I'm in California. And joining me from the not-so-quarantined at the moment, New York State, is H.A. Conrad. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Well, they you saw that the quarantine threat was called off, and now they're just issuing a travel advisory. But interesting stuff happening. Like, I don't know if you caught it, but Rhode Island basically was pulling over people or talking to people who had New York plates, or taking people, if people got off trains. The members of the Rhode Island National Guard were there to tell them that they need to be in quarantine. And Governor Cuomo basically told Rhode Island they needed to stop that because he would sue them otherwise. But I think those actions and even the talk of quarantine is pretty on point and shows how scared people are.
You think it's on point, like maybe not a bad decision?
No, I do think it's a bad decision because I don't think there's any way you can really stop people from doing that, as we've seen.
At this point, there's no state that doesn't have its share of cases.
I mean, honestly, the thing is that, yes, New York has a very high number of cases right now, but it's only because they were doing more testing. And so that's really what it is. And even if states have a lower density of population, it's still there. It's everywhere now. There is no containing this thing. So that's why I think it's kind of ridiculous. And now it's more like, hey, everybody just needs to stay home. But we will see if that happens. I'm still, look, I have not been out a lot, deliberately.
What's a lot? Or what's not a lot?
If I go out, it's usually very early in the morning before anybody is out, because even yesterday when it was kind of rainy and nasty here, there were droves of people out just kind of like walking around and not keeping their distance. Where Bill is going out a little bit more than me. He thinks I'm being slightly overreactive. I don't think I am. I have asthma, though, so I'm obviously a little bit more concerned about getting this. And you have only to take one look at what's happening at the New York hospitals right now to basically, to me, make the decision that you don't want to end up there. So they're totally overwhelmed already.
Yeah, and you don't want to end up there and needing a ventilator, that's for sure.
Correct. And so, yeah, maybe I'm being a little extreme, but
No, I don't think so. We've basically stayed in the house all week, except for, we're blessed and lucky to have a backyard, so it's not like we're inside. And you have your roof. I don't know. Do you share that with your neighbors?
We do, but so far we have not seen. We'll hear them up there, and if we hear them up there, we won't go up. We don't have that many apartments in our building. There are only 4 apartments.
That's manageable.
So, there's 2 sides of the roof, too. So we tend to stay on the side that's over our apartment so as not to disturb the other neighbors that also have it sort of right over their apartment. And so I've been doing that, and I've been going out there. When I have been going out, rather than being on the sidewalks, I've been walking down the middle of the street because there's really no traffic. Because people on the sidewalks don't really seem to be understand. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, some people are totally aware of it, and some people are just kind of like, I'm just gonna go about my life. And so it's just like an odd place to be right now.
Everywhere is an odd place to be right now, but I'm sure New York is worse than most. I went to 4 grocery stores yesterday looking for flour. Couldn't find it anywhere, which is kind of frustrating. Paper products are still nowhere to be seen. But fresh produce and fresh meat are readily available, so I guess we'll just get by on some sort of keto diet, paleo something.
Weirdly, we have not, other than still the Clorox and the Purell, the Clorox wipes and the Purell, everything is still well stocked here. So that's
great.
That's kind of awesome. But again, we've been limiting how much we've been going to the stores and really just, trying to minimize anything like that.
Looks like you're down to about half a jar of Jeeves balls.
Yes. So that's we'll see what happens there. They'll go a long way though. It'll be okay, I hope.
Okay. Sometimes I see Bill eat more than one at a time, and I'm like, whoa, buddy.
Yeah, he can't help himself really. It's you know.
Well, that series continues to tickle the masses.
Funnily enough, I heard I've been hearing from friends whose children apparently watch this every night before they go to bed. So we're now being at least a little bit aware of what the content is. Not that it was ever really.
Well, the Agatha Christie version or something that you were going to do might have to be a little more rated G.
Correct. But anyway, like my friend from Denmark, apparently her little boy watches it every night. So, and our friends in New Jersey. So, it's at least something that's not like it's silly and it's meant to be silly and hopefully gives people a laugh. But we'll see. Today, I think we're going to give Bill a haircut while he eats a cheese ball. So
I've decided I'm not going to cut my kid's hair until after this is over. So it'll be like kind of a measure, like a measuring stick of how long we've been here. Already kind of needed a haircut when we came into this.
Yeah.
And now it's just going to be, wow.
Yeah, he's trusting me to cut it. I'm not sure that I trust myself to cut it. He may end up with no hair at the end of this, so we'll see what happens.
Do you have clippers?
Tuned. We do.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, then why even go through the pretense of knowing how to cut hair?
Exactly, but, for art, for drama.
For art and drama. I appreciate that. I'm always a fan of art and drama. So, case-wise, let me just go through the numbers real quick, even though we don't want to dwell on it too long. We are at, let's see, let me just refresh this bad boy. We are at a global case count of 684,652. The USA got into first place this week. Cause for much celebration, I'm sure. 124,763 cases. And those numbers, I'm pretty sure they do include any recovered people who have recovered. So it's a little higher than active cases. And then Italy is next, 92,472. China still chugging along at 82,120. And I've started to see some people really questioning their numbers. And I mean, yes, draconian state, et cetera, but really, you managed to hold it there. Okay. Spain, 78,797, and then Germany is rounding out the top 5 with 58,247. And those are all big numbers, and they've only gotten bigger. My county government has started a website that counts last 24 hours. So globally, there were 67,400 new cases, 11% increase in cases in the last 24 hours worldwide. Deaths, there were 12% more deaths. 3,454 deaths in the last 24 hours, which is a pretty scary number if you think about that, just ticking over. 32,000 deaths overall. Weirdly, Sonoma County still only has like a very low number of cases, like 54. I mean, it's gone up, and one fatality. It's really weird. We're all kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop,
Well, maybe it's a little warmer out there. Maybe it's not as such a dense population.
Well, there are counties nearby, though, like Santa Clara, with hundreds of cases. So it's difficult to judge. Maybe people are just sheltering, but I know that they're not.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, there was a weird decision in New York to allow construction to continue and not just like necessary construction that the infrastructure would fall apart without, just sort of luxury high rises and things like that. And you see all these teams just all together really in close quarters, so that's kind of weird. And I know that they were talking about addressing that.
Housing is such a problem in this state that housing was always considered essential, and I get it because we're still suffering from losing 5% of our housing stock 2.5 years ago. So we need to keep working on some of that stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but here it's not that kind of housing. It's luxury housing. So we're talking about like high rises and things like that.
Yeah.
So, the other thing I would say is just have to say, like this past Friday, there was a whole citywide sort of celebration, clapping moment for all of our healthcare and frontline workers, and I have to just say thank you, because all those people are really putting themselves at risk. And
Caught some video of that. It seems really, I don't know, like heartwarming.
it was. I mean, it was amazing. We could hear it, and it was really like all the Who's in Whoville clapping. But I don't think anybody can deny that all of those people are just amazing and superheroes, and also I would say not just them, but all the people that are going to staff the grocery stores and pharmacies and things like that. All of them are putting themselves right there. We, at the store that we do go to periodically, they're all wearing face shields and all the protective measures that they can take, but it's still pretty scary, and they're right there and interacting with everybody. So, but without them, we couldn't keep this whole thing going. So, they're coming in when we all have the luxury of staying at home. So please stay at home. But yeah.
Yep. Please stay at home. So with that, should we talk about some zombie stuff?
Sure.
Some lighter fare.
I will mention, I don't know if you saw this meme going around, but people who are refusing to self-quarantine are the same as people who would hide a zombie bite. I saw that going around.
I haven't seen that, but it's pretty appropriate.
I'll text it to you. It's pretty funny.
In sad news, I guess not unexpected, although I was caught off guard by this. Walking Dead season 10 will not air its final episode 16, until later in the year. I don't think they even have a date. So they'll finish the season at episode 50. Well, they won't finish the season, but they will not have any more content because they couldn't finish post-production until after episode 15. So hopefully episode 15 doesn't end with a crazy freaking cliffhanger.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was hoping that they had already finished, but I knew it was probably too good to be true, so it didn't.
I feel like you were all convinced that they could do post from home too, but I guess maybe they need.
I mean, they kind of need, actual footage to do post, so I think they were a little bit behind, and probably also got delayed because of everything that's happening here, understandably.
And then we missed it, but on the 20th of March, The World Beyond had already announced that they were not going to stick to their April 12th air date, and they were going to air later this year. So just nothing there. And I just checked Fear the Walking Dead website before we started recording, and there's like no mention of season 6 there whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we are in limbo officially with AMC's The Walking Dead. I'd also looked at Blood Quantum's website because that's a movie I'm really excited to see. And they had also said like, yeah, we're hitting the pause button for our theatrical release.
Yep. Not shocking, but at least we have the trailer for the next look, for the look at the sequel to Train to Busan. So that's kind of cool.
Well, it's more just a couple of stills, but
still,
and a little bit of a description that I think it's basically like the Korean peninsula has fallen, and this is people coming back to the peninsula to like look for something. I think I haven't read it in a couple days, so I might be misremembering. Did you look at it?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
But still, I'm taking hope from this, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, sure, dude. If we can get a Train to Busan sequel, I think all will be made right in the world again. On some level.
But I think we should jump into our review / summary.
Yeah, these were two very interesting episodes. This was a mid-season premiere, episode 9 and 10. So Squeeze was the mid-season premiere, followed by Stalker. Both had their strengths.
And weaknesses.
And weaknesses. Squeeze, I think, had one or two more weaknesses based on production.
Correct.
Because for a lot of the time, it felt like you were on a set in old Star Trek.
Yep.
But, I mean, it wasn't that one-dimensional. Even though, it's really hard, I think, to make cave interiors on a set look realistic, not make them look like Quickcrete, which is kind of what it felt like a lot of the time. But the way that they went like vertical to horizontal, the way that they had made the cast move through the set was still really good, I thought.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, look, I think that there's also only so much you can do to make crawling through closed, tight spaces, exciting for an entire episode. And even with the few respites that we got, I think we could have done a little less with them in the cave, but what are you going to do? I agree with you. I think it was a little bit of a difficult thing to undertake and make look realistic, but hey, it is what it is, and there were some cool things about it too. This episode was written by David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick and directed by the one and only Michael Satrazemis. Zemis.
In the future showrunner of the show that might not air.
Yeah. But
soon,
you've got,
anyway.
I mean, but look, so this is, I mean, there's some interesting dynamics in this. The group, this is the group that has followed Carol into her ill-advised sort of tracking of Alpha. They follow her into the cave, which we all know was a bad idea. I find
what's funny here is, sorry, go ahead. What was
I was
you
gonna say, I found it weird that they were all following her into the cave, because one would think that even though she was doing that, I mean, I could see Daryl doing it, but I couldn't see the entire group doing it, and that is what I find weird about it. But that aside, they did, and so there we are.
What's crazy is that they all fell in the same pit. Like, none of them heard somebody going, "Ow, pit!"
Yeah.
And also, in our last episode, I was like, why didn't any of them have a flashlight? Turns out they all pretty much have flashlights. Not all of them, but at least a few of them have flashlights.
Yep.
Why weren't they using those as soon as they got into the really dark cave?
Because it's a freaking cave. Yeah.
Well, and they were worried about an ambush, which Carol should have been in the first place.
Yep.
So, big loser in this episode is definitely Carol.
Yep.
Carol Pelletier comes across like a broken woman, a shadow of her former self. The best she can do is scream impotently at Alpha as she stands above and, like kind of not even sneers. Did she even like make any kind of facial expression, or did she just look at them impassively with a torch in her hand?
No, her eyes got a little wider. She gave as much expression as Alpha could give. It was definitely a bit of a haha look.
Yeah.
And
as much as a praying mantis will look at you.
Yep. And this is, and it's like, oh, their horde is here. And so we've got Daryl, Carol, Aaron, Jerry, Kelly, Connie, and Magna, all in this wonderful grouping. Yep. Lots of implausible things here.
The jumping, did you find that a little too difficult?
Yes. It's difficult because it's like somehow the walkers just don't grab all of their ankles and overwhelm them. This is just ridiculous. But whatever, I guess that's how they're going to play this. So lots of jumping from sort of safe haven to safe haven, and then just moments of total like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to them? We have Kelly especially doing this, and she's got her bum ankle, so there's that. Other weaknesses in this group is that Jerry's portliness is playing against him here.
Yeah, poor guy gets squished into very narrow spaces eventually. They also start to kind of freak out about is it daytime or nighttime, and how much food do we have? And we don't know how much time is passing outside, but they went in during the day, they come out during the day. I don't know.
Right.
Has it been 24 hours, or was it really just 30 minutes?
I don't know, but it seemed a little early to be talking about food supplies. So I gotta agree with them there. In terms of Kelly's what? Why are we talking about this yet? We've got Daryl's, tracking, and apparently he is a man of all trades. He can find a draft in the middle of a cave with his little flame. The other thing we got going on here is Carol's claustrophobia, which, apparently she never told anybody about, but Daryl knows because they're so close and he notices
It feels like they're just piling it on to Carol now. They're adding a new weakness to her that we didn't know about in this episode, just to make her even more pathetic, Yeah. Don't you feel like it's a bit of a pile on?
Yeah, and, look, this is really just again, it's so hard for me to believe that Carol would do any of this even in her current state. And that's sort of the part that is, but whatever. So you just go with it. So
you know how zombies in this world seem to be just walking bags of blood, because Carol even put out a fire by cutting one of their throats in an earlier episode in the season, right? And then so do you find it implausible that when Daryl cuts the arm off a zombie, he can light it on fire like it's made of whatever like that stuff is that you put on your fire to basically just an accelerant. It's basically they're made of gasoline and they burn really well.
Yep, apparently.
They use this arm torch a couple of times in the episode, and I mean, I'm glad that they have a readily accessible light source now, but it's a little bit absurd because you can't have them be full of blood all the time and gross and then extremely flammable.
Yeah. And we've also got, the stuff between Daryl and Carol. Basically, he's like, you're still keeping stuff from me. How am I ever going to trust you again? And, it's still like, she breaks down and we see, but it's like she just continues this behavior. She keeps doing it. It's not going to stop. And then we've also got the dynamic, like Magna's upset because she left things badly with Yumiko. And then there's definitely a few moments where people are pissed at Carol and Daryl.
Magna goes after her, yeah.
Yeah, and Daryl and other people are like, oh, we don't have time for this. We got to get out of here. And it's all like, so I just felt like a lot of this and the drama, and again, this is a difficult undertaking. You're all in a closed space. I think they did the best that they could. There was definitely the way that they were filming this, just having people kind of like crawling through these tight spaces was good. And then adding the element of the walkers coming after them, plus having some of the whispers in there as well, which adds to another element. There's stuff there that's like really good in terms of terrifying. I just felt like it was a little bit too much of this.
When Magna is looking for a passage with her matches, and then then they have the interaction with the skins. Yeah. At that point, honestly it was tense. It was a good moment for tension, but it just goes on a little bit too long. They're just like squeezing through one thing and then squeezing through another, and then the scene when Jerry is like, hey, everybody, shush, shush. He winds up his extremely loud flashlight. And I'm listening so hard, I can't hear any zombies growling until he flashes a light on them. And then they're really growly. And you're like, what were they, like, silently stalking through the... Also, here's a great example of zombies, like, going through an obstacle course. When in other versions of this show, like the episode where June goes back to the FEMA center and they basically foil zombies with bunk beds because they can't go between the top and the bottom bunk to get to the heroes. You're like, wait a second. Wait, they can crawl through caves like this in like extremely weird scenario, but they can't. Okay, let's work on continuity. Hopefully this is the kind of thing that what's his name Gimple is doing at the in the catbird seat.
Yeah, I thought that maybe the way I was sort of thinking about that was that the whispers were guiding them into it. So that's what I was thinking was happening, but maybe I'm wrong. But also this whole scene with Jerry and like he's got like okay, can we just talk about like they're grabbing onto his feet and they're biting through boot leather. I mean, these particular walkers look so worn down. I don't know that is a possibility for them. I don't know that they would have the jaw strength. They all look like they're about ready to just fall apart. So just from that point of view. And also, by the way, it did look like they bit through his boot.
There was blood, and I don't know how you could make that quick inspection on the part of Kelly or Connie, whoever it was, and be like, no, you're good. Yeah. It was, to me, I was like, we better take a better look at this in the sunlight. But Jerry has continued on the show and hasn't turned, so I think that he's okay.
But then we have the big escape scene, and they find the discovery of the dynamite that is sweatier than Jerry, which was a pretty funny comment.
That was good. That was good. I like that Jerry also just knows his way around nitroglycerin.
Yep. So we got that going on, and then of course Carol pulls more of her crap and goes back to get rid of the horde. Which, by the way, look, I mean, I get that sort of instinct, but how about you talk to the group before running off while they're trying to escape in this particular situation? You're not helping the situation, and this is
they're in an extremely fragile mine shaft, like an ancient mine shaft. Yeah, come on, dude, use your brain.
I did like the setup of all the ancient things in this mine shaft. Like there's like an old wagon, there's an empty cage for the canary in the coal mine. There's all that stuff going on, so that set piece is kind of fun, that the way they set that up.
Yeah.
But then, we've got people, and you knew somebody was going to get left behind. You knew that Carol was going to be responsible for it, and I think, at least my sense, I knew it was going to be Connie, because you had to set up that weird dynamic between Daryl and Carol, where...
Oh, yeah, so where now he has some skin in the game to hate her, but he's still... Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's begging for somebody to hate her by the end of this episode, but even worse, everybody just kind of walks away from her.
Well, that's kind of the deal, I think, is that they can't even waste the energy. And so basically, Connie and Magna are stuck below. We don't know their fate yet, though it seemed like they showed that they were still around.
They don't show them getting squished, but they definitely show an explosion of several what do you call those things? Bars of dynamite? No, that's not right. Sticks of dynamite exploding maybe 30 feet away from them. Yep. I feel like in reality they would be dead.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? Magna really sachets her way into that scenario in a very stylish way. I don't know if you appreciated how she was strutting through the mine shaft right before the end.
She was definitely strutting. And so I feel like we may see them again. And then the rest of the crew is out. And, we're going to probably meet up with them at some point later. We've also got...
Kelly also does some pretty badass hand-to-hand combat with the... Whispers when she gets out of the mine shaft. Like, she's just getting to her feet and does some pretty cool moves. She, hamstrings one of them, and then Aaron comes up and it's all over with Spike Hand.
Yeah, it was Mace Hand. And then, so all that, when they finally get out, I think that is better. Other parts of this episode...
That is better?
Well, it's better than anything underground anyway.
Oh, sure. Opinion. Yeah, but that's kind of the end of that little storyline. Yeah, but the what's going on in the Whisperer camp is also very much worth a mention.
Yes. So the other part of this episode that they use to break up the mineshaft scenes are many scenes between Alpha and Negan, and some scenes with Beta and Gamma. And so
the first of the scenes between Alpha and Negan are when she's either pooping or relieving herself in some other way, and he walks up to her at the latrine.
Yep.
And makes some sort of play on words about don't want to give you shit or something.
Yep.
I forget what he says. And then she's like, hey, don't worry about it. They're not here because of privacy. They're here for sanitary reasons. She's just so...
nonchalant about it.
Yeah, so flat with her response and just like, whatever, man. What do you want? You pain in my ass.
He does this after he's observed an interaction between her and Gamma and Beta. Basically, they've discussed how the group went directly to where the Horde was and that there must be a spy. And also that the people that they have, and they're indicating that there's maybe more potentially than Dante, haven't been doing the job that they were supposed to. So she sends Gamma to supposedly investigate. Negan's observing all of this. We just see his sly little smile. And then he definitely plants some thoughts into Alpha's head, which she's like, oh, don't sow seeds of dissension with me, because he basically points out, like, he's very smart about it. He's like, oh, it's definitely not Beta, because he's absolutely your devoted follower. He's like, but that Gamma, I'm not so sure about. And so he does. He successfully plants that seed in her head, and it's interesting because she does dismiss him and basically tells him he can't be trusted, but then immediately goes to Beta and says, you need to go and check this and see what's happening, and if it's Gamma, get rid of her. And so that's kind of, Negan is, the interaction between him and Alpha is always good. He's just so ridiculous, cannot shut up, but clearly it's working. His method is working, and
well, what is he? Yeah, I guess in terms of it's working in that he's burrowing his way into the Whisperers and using his instincts to
right.
influence Alpha's decision making, for sure.
Right.
The fact that we know that Gamma's turning. I guess we don't know that until next episode. But she's on the ropes. She's on the edge. She told Aaron where the Horde was, although she didn't know where it was exactly. Mm-hmm. But it makes us wonder, does Negan... He's, willing to sacrifice a whisperer who might be a good guy now. Even, like I'm just saying, assuming that he's not really joining them because there's this, we're not really sure. This makes you definitely think, oh, he's actually going over to their side. That's all.
Oh, I don't think so. I think
No?
he is definitely has his own plan, and I think we know, at least for me, we know enough about Negan to know that I just don't see him totally doing that. I feel like he's trying to get close to Alpha and Beta to maybe take him out. And I don't know if maybe he needs more information. I'm not sure. I still feel like he's sharing information, but I just still don't think that he's going to turn.
He's a wily animal for sure, but to me, watching this with the benefit of hindsight, I'm like, well, he just kind of, he got something out of this. It was a tactical decision, and it was a tactical victory, but the cost is actually not insignificant here.
True.
For what he does. So when you look down the line, that's all.
Well, I don't have that benefit yet because I'm watching these now in real time. So, but that's my assessment. And even, do we want to talk about the scene with them? Because it is seriously weird and strange.
It's seriously weird and gross, and but it is funny. And he actually refers to her as a praying mantis. Yep. So kind of like justifying all of my speculation that Samantha Morton has been basing her character off of some sort of crazy insect that eats people.
Right. And also, just the whole thing where she basically leads him into the woods. He thinks he's going to die, but instead she offers him the reward of having sex with her in her skin mask. I mean,
what a reward.
Man, what a reward. And the scene of them, man, they must be so stinky and nasty. Because he's fallen she pushed him into the latrine earlier.
Oh God, yeah. It's not like he gets to bathe, and he has to kiss her through the mask.
And he's like, "Oh, it kind of turns me on," and I'm like, "Oh man, you're such a if you're not acting, man." He has
been in a cell for the last 6 years. So.
I guess, but it's still pretty funny. But the point I will make is that she is trusting him enough to put him this close to her, and she has given credence to his theory. She has taken action because of his theory. So I would say if he is sort of has other plans, he's gotten there, and he's
definitely in.
Yeah, in every way. And so we'll see what happens in the next one, or the next few episodes, because, that remains to be seen.
There was a lot of uproar about this scene on Twitter, online and stuff after this scene happened, because it's just like...
It is gross.
Yowza.
And of course they pan away and show how nasty and dirty and gross they are, but...
They are just mottled gray skin. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
But
so that's the end, right? There's nothing else really in Squeeze, and that takes us to Stalker, which is just a bananas episode.
Yep.
We've got Rosita having nightmares. Now she's got the PTSD. Thanks, Sadiq.
Yep.
Way to give her transmittable PTSD dreams. This is all we need.
Oh, no.
And then there's Gamma walking up to the front gates of Alexandria. They've got like 20 people surrounding her with spears, which seems a little bit like overkill. But also, she's a whisperer, and so it's probably a smart choice. I kind of like the way she dresses.
Yep.
She reminds me of a young me.
Young grungy you. It is very the grunge rock 90s
She's
kind of
huge pants, shirt with the sleeves hanging down over her hands, which is actually smart because then you can't see if she's holding something in her hand.
Correct.
But yeah,
she's got some layers.
Gamma gets got. Rosita knocks her out after she's like, my sister's dead. But this is the episode where I think, in my personal book, Gabriel is the big loser because he goes off the deep end of wackadoo.
Oh yeah, because he's like, oh, now we just have to torture them and they'll turn. And it's like, no, man, you have collateral here. You've got leverage here because you have her nephew. That's why she's turning, not because you're threatening her.
Yeah.
She's got enough stuff to worry about from the other camp, so no, that's not what is effective here. But
and any fear you're sensing is not of you; it's of Alpha and Beta, more likely than not.
Right.
And honestly, that's not even fair to say that he's the big loser, because there's an entire house full of people in Alexandria who are the bigger losers than Gabriel in this episode. Also, Outpost 1 or whatever it was. Alexandria takes some big hits in this episode.
Yep. So basically, they get some information from Gamma, whose actual name is Mary. They're, pretty hard on her, but and they leave her in the cell, but they do take it seriously, and she admits that she actually killed her sister, and that makes Gabriel think that they should at least give some credence to what she's saying. They hear from one of their lookouts that the Horde is coming, and so they prep to send people out to address it and not bring them up by the gates, which seems a little bit convenient. Gabriel and Rosita still having a hard time, so Gabriel makes the decision that Rosita stays behind.
With Laura.
Yep, and and then we see, what Beta's been up to, and basically they have a secret crazy tunnel, like a really crazy tunnel, leading up through Alexandria, through the grave of Dante or of the other woman.
Yeah, this is, and other people have talked about this. This is not Dante's grave. He dug the grave for Cheryl, the woman that he murdered.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think they would have really left him into such a place
We
of
watched
honor.
his body get burned in
Right.
the mid-season finale.
Right.
But, like, the fact that Gabriel is like, this is Dante's, it's a little weird to point out this is the person who dug the grave rather than this was where Cheryl was buried, that poor woman, that beloved member of our community. So yes, curious wording there. You could have just said Dante dug this grave for Cheryl, and that would have been clear. But yeah, that's where Beta emerges in a very cinematic and
it's almost like Raising
manner.
Arizona, like when they come up through the sewers, like his hands come through and he's rising. It's a very classic kind of zombie, rising. So, and he's formidable.
It's also a very interesting parallel between him coming up out of the ground in this episode with his hands coming up like spiders and feeling around and then, pulling himself up, versus our heroes coming up out of the ground in the last episode where they emerge like, I don't know, like asthmatic people,
dusty heroes.
Dusty, can't see, coughing. I mean, they still come out of the hole and kill some whisperers, but still, they do not come out with nearly as much style as Beta manages.
Yep. And then, he's starting to walk through, like, the Alexandria is his oyster. He's a formidable enemy. We've got people trash talking about how weak the whisperers are, so you know that they're going to bite it.
Yeah, I guess maybe we're supposed to take away that these are what's left of the Highwaymen then, because one of them was certainly, he even talks about how he beat up Lydia.
Yep.
Way to go, dude. He beat up like a between 16 and 20-year-old girl / woman.
Yep, and she didn't fight back that much. It's
and she didn't really fight back. It's well played.
And then we have, the powers getting cut. We have, some really great scenes of Beta ambushing this whole group of people, turning them into walkers, basically turning them on the rest of the people. And
the style with which he does this in this house, like turning out the light while those two guys are having their conversation.
Yep.
And then from the outside of the house looking in, just the way this was shot too.
Yeah, great.
The way he turns out lights, and then there's chaos, and then you're in the house with him, finishes off people, and then just does that like yoga pose and waits. Mm-hmm. Very stylistic.
It is. And then you've got Rosita marshaling the troops when they realize what's happening. And I think it's interesting. I mean, I will say, how does Beta even know exactly where Gamma is? Like, that's kind of weird. Like, he immediately goes to, after he's done this, he immediately goes to the jail cell.
Well, I think there's one guard left in front of the jail cell. So if he's just going based on why is there a person posted in front of this house, then maybe that's what it is. But also, it could be that Dante has given them maps and told them where everything is.
Maybe. But, anyway, so he goes and has this interaction with Gamma and basically tells her, I'm going to bring you and you'll die painlessly. It'll be okay. You're not one of them. And it's like, dude, do you think anybody would really believe you? And she's good. She stands up and says, that's not true. And
why do you think he can't go into the cell to get her? Why does he come to me? What do you suppose that's about?
Well, I think he's needing to show his dominance, but I also think he's worried that somebody will come up behind him and lock him in the cell. So I think it's tactical as much as it is anything. And
Well,
so
somebody
anyway,
does come up behind him and makes the last mistake she'll ever make on the show, because Laura, the former savior, instead
yeah,
of just punching him through the skull with her halberd, just kind of rested against his jaw
I know she
like
should
a
have just
poor,
killed him.
misled kitten. Uh, Gamma goes out to get help, Mary rather, I guess,
Yep.
and then Laura gets killed. And
Yeah.
it's not totally clear in the scene that she's been killed, but she gets thrown against the jail cell bars, and then there's just a slight hint of blood coming out of her head before they cut to the next scene. So I think they could have left that in a little longer to give her, like, Laura has been on the show for 3 years.
I know.
She's like a Scott Kenrick Green
Yep.
type red shirt at this point. She should have a better death, I think. I mean, she gets killed by Beta in one-on-one combat. That's good, but the fact that you don't really know unless you follow Lindley Register on Twitter, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm dead." You
Yeah.
don't really know that she's dead until out of the film, or out of the story. So that was kind of a bummer to me.
I thought they were gonna at least show her like walking, risen or something like that, so you would know for sure. I thought, they made some pretty horrible noises when she got thrown. So,
Yeah, it was
but
a
I
pretty
agree.
gross noise.
But I agree with you. I think they should have done a little bit more for her, especially because in the end here, she's outmatched. She knows it, and she's just going full out on
Yeah.
I'm gonna go into beast mode because I need to save the people in this town. And so I thought that was cool, and they should have made her ending a little better.
I think she's the last savior that we know about, and so it's kind of sad. It's very sad to me losing her off of this cast, even though she is like definitely expendable cast member. It's also low hanging fruit, and I kind of wish they'd kept her around and developed her more and made her into more of a character.
I agree.
Well, either way, she's gone. Too bad, so sad.
And in the meantime, Gamma/Mary has been brought into safety into the house by Judith. And then suddenly, Beta just knows that she's gone into this house, which is like, how would he know that?
He's got Spidey sense now. That's what it is.
But he goes into the house. He's kind of stalking through the house. It is like, I actually was hoping we would have some Judith samurai sword action with him, but that didn't happen. However, she does use her other weapon, which is Rick's gun, and she shoots him through a door. He, of course, has a bulletproof something on, and
Well, that's like they showed the bulletproof vest in the first scene in the Highwayman house getting put on that other guy, and then so this is the showing the gun in the first act thing.
Can I point out that a double tap here to his head would have been smart on Judith's end? But
Yeah, I mean, I think she's just terrified, and she hasn't actually killed a person as far as we know yet. But he doesn't look like a person; he looks like a monster. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that Judith Grimes, out of anybody in this universe, knows to do a double tap for sure.
yeah. So, but in any case, she listens to Mary. She and little RJ run down the stairs, and then, of course, Gamma is overcome by Beta, who has risen. And then there's some Rosita action. She steps in.
She has a badass sword now. She has like this Maori. It's got like teeth along two edges of it. It's super jagged. I really like her sword. I don't know if it's Maori, but it's definitely of that sort.
It's cool, and she gets her looks in here. I mean, like, shouldn't be getting up at all. She's gotten, at least what it sounds like, it seems like she's gotten some really good cuts in. He does too, and ultimately knocks her down, and Gamma rescues her. And so
by threatening to kill herself, like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, this is just one crazy thing to the next in this episode.
Yeah.
This is kind of what I love about it. It's all very well choreographed, and but Gamma manages to talk him down and surrenders herself to him. But in the meantime, we also have this other parallel story going on of Daryl out in the woods hunting for this other entrance to the cave to go back in and save Connie if she's still there in Magna. Mm-hmm. Instead, he kind of runs into Alpha and a posse of her, like, I don't know, Praetorian Guard.
Yep.
Which turns out to just be like 3 other Whisperers and a bunch of Walkers.
Yep.
So I will admit that it's pretty dumb of them to be standing in the middle of this river on a sandbar and like looking around like, ooh, do you hear something?
Yep.
But then Daryl launches his ambush, which is shoot a Whisperer in the torso or in the leg or whatever, making him scream, taking care of a lot of the walkers.
Yep.
And then he comes in like a whirlwind, takes out I think one or two other Whisperers, and does some damage to Alpha before she actually turns out to be. Remember when she said she was hard to kill?
Yep. Oh, she
or
is.
I don't die easy. Yeah, she's definitely up there, because she gives him like a bad head wound that messes with his vision. They're both super torn up. He's putting a stick through her shoulder.
Yeah.
They give each other what for. That's for sure.
They do, and I mean, I think that the way this was shot was really great, because you see like how bad his vision is and what he's working with, and it is definitely, you feel like it's a fight to the death, and you do get that they're both very much so, like, they're wounded hard. Like, both of them are really not doing so well. He's got like a knife sticking out of his leg, and they both end up so in such a damaged way that they can't really do anything. They end up in this kind of weird hangar / garage, and there's some, and I will say the makeup for the walkers that come in here, we got some walkers with twigs growing off of them and whatever, and they're really cool looking.
Mushroom walker.
Yep.
These are fantastic. Some of the best walkers I feel like we've seen on this show.
Oh, they're so good. And, he takes care of them, but him and Alpha are kind of on opposite ends of this little garage, and they're both so wounded. Like, he has
they should
to
both be dead.
Oh, absolutely, just from blood loss. But he takes that knife out of his thigh, which looks like it's his artery. It's nicked, and I think
I don't know that there is an artery in the front of your leg. I think it's on the inside. No,
it's on the inside, but like the way they have him bleeding, gushing,
it's definitely arterial, spurting blood when he pulls out the knife.
And he dispatches one that way, but he would have bled out pretty fast, because it doesn't seem like he tourniquets it. He tries to stave it off, but doesn't seem like he's got anything.
They should both have bled out in this garage before Lydia even manages to show up like a dream.
Yep.
So that part I got a little frustrated with. It felt like Alpha should have died here. Daryl too. Mm-hmm. And that would have sucked, but it also would have been like, okay, an eye for an eye or something.
Yeah, but that's not what happens. So anyway, we got Alpha being all weird, saying weird stuff to Daryl about, he's made of pain, they're all made of pain, and that she's feeling great. And then Lydia shows up, and she's even more excited, because she thinks that Lydia's now coming back to her. And then Lydia's like, but no, I'm not here for you. And there's all sorts of like weird camera stuff, so that you're not totally sure whether this is real or not.
Right.
But during this time, Lydia manages to scratch a note to her mom that her way is not the only way, because, precious time is not going by. And that was kind of lame, but whatever. And, so Lydia manages to pull Daryl into the woods to save him. And then Alpha is totally now even more committed to her way of crazy life and death, and ends with her weird little chant about bathing in blood in the end of the world.
And she's been found by a couple of her other Whisperers. I'm sure they gave her 3 bags of blood, and I'm sure Lydia did the same thing for Daryl out in the woods, and neither of them have sepsis.
Nope. And then we've also got the Alexandrians dealing with the aftermath, and Beta is chased off from Gamma in the woods, and they basically
once again she has to plead for her life. Like, Thora Birch, man, I just love her performance. She gets that across so well, just like the impossibility of explaining yourself in this situation. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and so basically they give her the reward of sending her off to Hilltop to see her nephew, along with Judith and Rosita. And I don't know, Rosita decides to leave her baby behind with Gabriel, but that's kind of weird.
Kind of crazy.
And that's where we are. I mean, we've got, and I will say that this episode, I liked it a lot better than the last one. It moved along. There were some interesting things. There's some good fight scenes. But obviously they're trying to build tension for the last battle, which they set up with Alpha being all crazy at the end. So.
What do you think is did they explain the purpose of them sending wagons to Hilltop with Judith and Rosita?
They didn't. As far as I could tell, it just seemed like that's what they were going to do. Maybe to warn them. I don't know. It just seems, I mean, for Rosita, it's like they say she needs a doctor, but...
They have radios. I mean, yeah.
So maybe that's it, but it still seems kind of strange
It
that
does.
they're taking the risk to send this many vulnerable people out there. But hey, maybe it's to move people around and get them off camera.
I think it's to move them into position for the next episode, like you were alluding
Right.
to. Also, it's just a little odd. I don't know why. Yeah, why a caravan makes sense when you're like, oh, we're about to be in a war scenario. Let's send a caravan with some children to Hilltop.
Yeah. But and also one of our best like sources of information about the Whispers. But anyway.
So I think it was 2 pretty strong episodes. The set really kind of was the main problem with Squeeze, and a little bit of incredulity with Carol's character arc here, but and incredulity that Daryl is still basically like, you're okay, I love you, you're Carol, we're friends.
I know.
When I think she's tested the patience of most people beyond repair.
Yeah.
And then in Stalker, just an amazing physical, choreographed performance by what's his name, Ryan Hurst as Beta.
Oh yeah.
And just the way that he dismantled that one house of people and Laura's character, the character of Laura, and yet met his match, sort of, not really actually, with anybody. He hasn't really met his match since Daryl. We have to get them back together.
Yep. I think that'll be a good scene, and hopefully it will come. I don't know yet. So I think that's all I have to say about this particular couple of episodes. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I guess not. We will. We can still do more for now. So we will join us next time when we do Morning Star and Walk With Us, which will be episodes 11 and 12. And that will then take us into the last 3 that we'll have access to.
Right. And if you'd like to comment or just send in general thoughts about the current situation, you can email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. Leave a note on our site, reanimatedpodcast.com, or tweet at us, reanimatedpcast.com. I hope everybody stays safe and well out there. Stay home if you can. And ciao until the next time.
Flatten that curve. Thanks for listening, and bye-bye.